There's a tendency in some people to procrastinate important life decisions. A psychological pattern that keeps the decisions pending for months and sometimes even years. In this episode, we'll cover the whole psychology behind the doubtful nature of the human mind that keeps us away from life. If you're interested in psychology and conscious living, join our community by subscribing to this channel. The doubting idiot, seventh in Gurdjieff's classification, has discovered the perfect justification for never starting the journey. They claim that to start something, more clarity is needed, and a level of certainty must be achieved before the action becomes possible. Because this sounds so reasonable, so intelligent and responsible, the pattern can continue indefinitely without recognizing it as mechanical avoidance. All the information has been gathered, every angle has been examined, pros and cons have been listed, analyzed, and weighted. Research continues, more perspectives get considered, additional data gets collected, still no movement occurs. Still, the question remains open, suspended in a state of perpetual maybe, as time continues its indifferent march forward and life makes the decision through inaction. This isn't careful consideration. This is paralysis wearing the mask of thoughtfulness. Picture how this internal process unfolds. A possibility presents itself. Then, immediately, questions arise. What if this is wrong? What if another option is better? What if the timing isn't right? What if more information revealed a superior choice? These questions feel like genuine inquiry, intelligent evaluation, like the kind of careful thinking that prevents mistakes. But something else is happening beneath the surface of all this apparent rationality. Fear operates the machinery, though it never announces itself as fear. The language remains cerebral, analytical, and practical. I'm just being thorough. I want to make the right choice. I need more clarity before I can commit. The emotional component stays hidden behind intellectual justification, and the person genuinely believes the hesitation comes from wisdom rather than the terror of what commitment might result in. Commitment does mean something threatening to this pattern. It means risk. It means responsibility, the possibility of being wrong, making mistakes, and facing consequences. As long as the decision remains unmade, as long as possibilities stay open, none of these dangers can materialize. The perpetual maybe becomes a safe space where nothing bad can happen because nothing actually happens at all. Gurdjieff understood that real understanding leads naturally to action. When genuine comprehension occurs, when something is truly seen and grasped, movement follows organically. The person who genuinely understands fire is hot doesn't endlessly analyze whether to remove their hand from the flame. The knowing produces an immediate response. But the doubting idiot has separated thinking from doing so completely that years of thought can accumulate without producing even the smallest movement. This creates a peculiar form of mental activity that mimics consciousness while preventing it. The intellectual center runs constantly, analyzing and comparing. This feels like engagement with life, feels like active participation in one's own development. But it's actually a sophisticated form of hiding, of staying in the realm of abstraction where nothing is at stake, where mistakes are impossible. And with this, the possibility of growth also vanishes. The mechanism loops endlessly. Analysis produces uncertainty. Uncertainty demands more analysis. More analysis reveals additional possibilities to consider. Additional possibilities create new uncertainties. The cycle feeds itself, growing more complex over time, creating the illusion of deepening understanding while actually just deepening paralysis. Modern culture provides perfect conditions for this pattern to flourish unrecognized. Information has become infinite and instantly accessible. Any decision can be researched exhaustively. Every choice can be analyzed from unlimited perspectives. The person who spends months gathering data before acting appears wise, careful, and intelligent. No one asks whether all this thinking is producing insight or preventing movement. Articles and books about decision-making are read, and this creates a sense of forward motion, a feeling of working on the problem, but nothing actually changes in the person's life. The consumption itself becomes a substitute for action, and years pass in this state of perpetual preparation for a start that never comes. Notice how the pattern justifies itself. I'm not ready yet. I'm thinking about it. Each statement sounds perfectly reasonable, perfectly sensible, and perfectly valid. Who could argue against being prepared or making informed choices? The disguise is nearly perfect. But beneath the reasonable language lies a brutal truth. Indecision is itself a decision. Not choosing is a choice. Endless thinking without action produces definite results. The result of a void, nothing actually happening in the person's life. Time moves regardless of whether decisions get made, and the refusal to commit doesn't keep possibilities open. It closes them through inaction just as surely as wrong choices would through action. The doubting idiot rarely sees this. The anxiety that drives the endless questioning doesn't feel like anxiety. It feels like conscientiousness. The fear that prevents commitment doesn't feel like fear. It feels like wisdom. The avoidance that keeps life frozen doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like patience. Understand how the three centers operate in this type. The intellectual center dominates completely, running constant scenarios, generating infinite possibilities, creating elaborate decision trees that branch endlessly without producing any actual conclusion. The emotional center contributes fear disguised as prudence, anxiety masked as caution, and terror of consequences, presenting as thoughtful consideration. The physical center remains largely inactive, waiting for the command to move that never arrives because thinking never concludes. This creates a tremendous imbalance. Mental activity reaches exhausting levels while external reality remains unchanged. The person feels tired from all the thinking, drained from all the analysis, overwhelmed by all the possibilities. But none of this internal churning produces any friction with reality or any feedback that could lead to genuine learning. Everything stays theoretical, abstract, safely removed from the messy complications of real action in real circumstances. Years can pass this way. The person watches others move forward, make choices, take risks, learn from mistakes, and develop through engagement with reality. Meanwhile, the doubting idiot remains in the thinking phase. Perfect clarity is impossible from the position of non-action. Understanding develops through engagement, by trying things and discovering what happens, and making mistakes while adjusting based on feedback. The person who waits for complete certainty before moving will wait forever. This is the trap the doubting idiot cannot see from inside the pattern. This pattern usually breaks with a recognition of time's passage. Suddenly, years have gone by, opportunities have disappeared, possibilities have closed through non-decision. Life has moved forward whether choices were made or not, and the refusal to commit hasn't preserved options. They start to feel weaker with every new idea. In some cases, the person gets old in this phase because the pattern is so powerful that it can chain them for decades. This recognition can be devastating. All the careful thinking never prevented the wrong outcome. Worse, the thinking itself created the wrong outcome by preventing any outcome at all. Listen to this line again. The thinking itself created the wrong outcome by preventing any outcome at all. The very strategy meant to ensure right action ensures no action. The solution for this pattern is simple, but you must apply it immediately. Avoid perfection. Never try to eliminate uncertainty completely. Stop asking for guarantees of the right choices. Move despite doubt. Take action in the presence of incomplete information. Because as you move forward in life, things get clearer automatically. You become wiser in actual life, not just in intellectual realm. This terrifies the doubting idiot at a fundamental level. The entire pattern has been organized around avoiding exactly this type of attitude. But growth requires precisely this kind of imperfect action. Development occurs through engagement with reality, not through endless contemplation about engagement. Consciousness develops through making choices and living with consequences. The doubting idiot must learn this, that action with uncertainty produces more real understanding than thinking with safety. This doesn't mean eliminating all analysis or acting impulsively without consideration. It means recognizing when thinking has become avoidance, when analysis has become paralysis, and when the pursuit of clarity has become defense against movement. It means developing the capacity to act while doubt remains. The distinction is subtle. Healthy deliberation leads to a decision. It has a natural endpoint where enough consideration has occurred and movement begins. On the other hand, mechanical doubt has no endpoint. Analysis continues indefinitely, each answer generating new questions, each resolution revealing new uncertainties. The thinking loops back on itself, creating elaborate justifications for why just a bit more clarity is needed before action becomes possible. Breaking this loop requires doing something that feels completely wrong to this type. Choosing arbitrarily when rational analysis fails to produce clear answers. Sometimes the choice matters less than the act of choosing. The specific path matters less than the fact of moving, and the particular decision matters less than the end of paralysis. This offends the doubting idiot's sense of how things should work. But remember what Gurdjieff meant by conscious labor. It's not a perfect action, not flawless decision-making or guaranteed success. It is a deliberate effort engaged with reality, producing friction that creates possibilities for genuine observation and real learning. The person who acts and makes mistakes develops consciousness through that process. The person who thinks endlessly to avoid mistakes develops nothing but more thoughts. This pattern appears especially sophisticated in intelligent people. The more capable the analytical mind, the more elaborate the justifications for inaction can become. Simple fear gets dressed in complex philosophical frameworks. Basic avoidance gets hidden behind impressive intellectual structures. The paralysis becomes nearly invisible beneath layers of apparently thoughtful consideration. But the results remain identical regardless of sophistication. Life doesn't wait for perfect clarity. Opportunities don't pause while analysis continues. Time moves forward whether decisions get made or not. And the person who waits for certainty before acting discovers, usually too late, that certainty was never available from the position of inaction, and the waiting itself created exactly what it was meant to prevent. Allow me to make this clear with a short story. Two strangers once found themselves standing at a quiet crossroads. In front of them stretched several winding roads, but only one would lead to where they wanted to go. The trouble was, they had no map, no signs, and no clue which path was the right one. The first stranger took a deep breath, chose a road at random, and began walking. The second stayed behind, hesitant, deciding to wait until someone came along who could point the way. Time passed. After about an hour, the first traveler came across a local villager. He asked if he was heading in the right direction. The villager smiled and shook his head. It was the wrong road. But then he pointed toward a hidden detour, a path that would still lead to the destination. And so, guided by that small correction, the traveler eventually arrived where he needed to be. Back at the crossroads, the second stranger was still standing there, waiting, wondering, and imagining what might have happened to the one who chose to move. There exists in everyone a part that would prefer endless thinking to decisive action, that chooses analysis over commitment, that uses doubt as defense against the vulnerability that comes with actually choosing a direction to move. This part sounds reasonable, sounds intelligent, but it produces stagnation disguised as carefulness, paralysis masked as thoughtfulness, and life unlived justified by the pursuit of perfect understanding. The doubting idiot doesn't make wrong decisions. The wrong decision would at least produce consequences to learn from, feedback to adjust by, and real contact with reality that could lead to genuine development. Instead, this type avoids making decisions at all, and in that avoidance, time passes, possibilities close, life moves forward anyway, and the person remains exactly where thinking began. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. There are still 14 more patterns left in this series, so if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.